The lows just keep getting lower. We are calling out the Rangers for their latest collapse, their atrocious power play, and their brutal post-game quotes. Let's go.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1277 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, another brutal loss, another day at the office for the New York Rangers in a just atrocious season, if we're being completely honest here. The question that keeps coming up over and over and over and over throughout this entire sorry season is this most recent loss the worst that the Rangers have had the entire year, the entire season? And depends how you look at it. In terms of performance, I can't go that far with this game last night. They were bad, and they forgot to defend, and they hung Igor out to dry for the entire game. What else is new? They blew a late lead. What else is new? They choked in overtime. What else is new? But I can't go that far. Like, to me, there's other games. I think certainly the absolute butt kicking they got from the Sabres out of the Four Nations is very high up there. The 2-1 loss to the Flames not too long ago, very high up there. The complete and total and undeniable no-show that they had against the Flyers, that might be the grand champion, at least for me. So in terms of like performance, I wouldn't say it was the worst, but in terms of just a complete choke job and just failing in a situation where you had every opportunity to win this game, to put this game to bed, and you did not do it. Yeah, this is pretty high up there, especially when we're getting this late in the season, considering where the Rangers are in the standings. And one thing that I'll also say here, I think for a lot of people, it ranks pretty high because of the opponent, and I can certainly understand that. Not really for me. Like, the fact that it was the Ducks, not ideal, that doesn't really bother me as much as other aspects of this, though. And I'm going to explain a bunch of those aspects in just a second, because it's still a professional hockey team. They've got some young, exciting players. Sounds like things are going pretty good as far as the Anaheim rebuild is concerned. They're not there yet, but that team, I think, mostly has overachieved so far this season. So if you're upset that it was the Ducks, I get it. But for me, that's probably not even my top 10 reasons of things that just drive me crazy about a loss like this. The biggest thing, and I alluded to this just a second ago, for me at least, is that the Rangers had every single opportunity to nail the coffin shut, to get that final dagger, to take control of this game in the third period, and they just refused to do it. They did exactly the opposite. Time after time after time, they made mistake after mistake after mistake and did everything possible to keep the Ducks in this game. Now, credit to the Ducks for battling. I mean, the Rangers probably learned a thing or two from them, battling back even when things aren't necessarily going your way. But really think about the third period here. Think of how it started. Think of how it ended. Think of how we got to the overtime. Going into the third period in this game, the Rangers were up 3-1. Clearly, it was not a perfect effort. They were bleeding odd man rushes and dangerous scoring opportunities left and right, and Igor was basically saving their bacon. But the Rangers, facts are facts. They were in control of the game somewhat, as much as you can be playing the way the Rangers were playing. They're up 3-1. And then they're also up 4-2 with less than 6 minutes remaining in the game. So 2 different 2-goal leads for the Rangers in the third period. But here's the real kicker, and this is something that I don't think is getting enough attention. Not only did they blow the 2-2-goal leads, not only did they choke in the final couple of minutes, not only was their power play abysmal, but think about this. The Ducks found a way to come back and tie this game, despite being down by 2 goals twice, and also while taking 5 penalties in the third period. The Rangers were gifted 5 penalties by the Ducks in the third period with a 2-goal lead. They still could not figure out a way to hang on to this 2-goal lead, to run out the clock, to give some kind of an effort on defense, to give some kind of an effort on the back check, to do anything possible to support their goalie, who's out there standing on his head like he does pretty much every single night. And it was just atrocious. The Ducks were basically taking pages out of the Rangers playbook in the third period, having all these mental lapses and taking all these terrible penalties, an offensive zone penalty, a too many men penalty, a delay of game penalty, taking a penalty when you're already shorthanded and giving the opposition a 5-on-3. The Ducks were doing the Rangers a favor. The Ducks were not playing well in the third period, if we're being completely honest, and they still come back from 2 goals down, tie this game, and send it into overtime. And for the overtime, I mean, don't even get me started. There's not really a whole lot to talk about because it was over pretty quickly, but as soon as the Ducks won that opening faceoff for overtime, I thought, that's it. We're going to lose. We're not even going to get the puck. I swear to God, I had that exact thought. I would have never felt this way or thought this way last season because, again, this is a team that, for the most part, responded to adversity last season and showed some guts in situations like this, but not this year. As soon as that faceoff was won by the Ducks, and when you consider all the momentum that they had at the end of the third period, I felt like they were going to score. And they went with the 3 players that I probably would have gone with. You know, if I was Laviolette, if it was up to me, they went with Fox, they went with Panarin, and they went with Trocheck. But these 3 looked absolutely lost on this play. You've got Igor, out of his crease by a mile. The Ducks are basically just toying with the Rangers. And eventually, a couple quick passes, and they score, and they win. Rangers now 2-7 in overtime. Again, a team that just does not know what to do when it comes to a big moment in games, which is the polar opposite of what we saw last season. Something else, while we're on the subject of the third period collapse here, that I must talk about. And I don't know if anybody else picked up on this. I don't know if maybe this is me overanalyzing at least a little bit, but I don't care. I'm going to go there. That's what we're down to here. We're 72 games into the season, and I'm still trying to figure out what in the world is wrong with this team because I clearly they're not as good as they showed themselves to be last year, but I never for a second thought that they were this bad. But you watch things in the third period, everybody on the Ranger bench, anytime the Rangers had a 2-goal lead in this game, just looked a little bit too relaxed to me. Everybody was just kind of loose and laughing. And on one hand, look, you should enjoy yourself. You should enjoy playing professional hockey. But I didn't see that. And again, I don't know what is being said. The camera's not on them the entire game. But I didn't see that laser beam, dead serious focus that I'm looking for from this team right now. They're fighting for their lives. They need every point they can possibly get. And when Mika scored that power play goal in the third period to put them back up by 2 goals, everybody on the bench seemed to kind of just relax. Oh, it's cool, man. We got this, 2-goal lead. Everybody's like just smiling and kind of sitting back. And I don't know, man. I just want to see a look of a little bit more intensity. Like, let's put this thing to bed. Let's end this game. Let's close this thing out strong. Let's support our goalie for at least the last, 10 minutes of this game, 8 minutes of this game, whatever it was, to at least do that when we haven't done that the entire game. I don't expect them to be robots. It's fine if they're happy that they scored a goal. But does this team learn nothing after all the third period collapses, after all the lapses that they've had, even in this game, all the mistakes that they've made in this game, all the shoddy defense that they had played in this game? Has this team learned nothing? Apparently not, because as far as I could tell, it looked like guys were very relaxed and just kind of taking their foot off the gas and just happy to sit back and watch Igor do all the work. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but, it just shouldn't be happening because even at that point in the game, even with the Rangers up by 2 goals and like 6, 7, 8 minutes to go, the Rangers had not played a good game. They really hadn't. They were opportunistic at least, and they did convert some of their scoring chances. But look at the findings from Steve Valiquette and his Clear Sight Analytics, okay? The Rangers in this game conceded 14 high-danger chances while creating only 9 themselves. All 5 of Anaheim's goals came on high-danger scoring chances, and the Rangers scored 2 of their goals on high-danger chances, 2 of their goals on medium-danger chances. So very clearly, Anaheim was creating more opportunities, more dangerous opportunities, and I feel like that was pretty apparent in this game. And the only reason why the Rangers had a lead, and the only reason why they even got 1 point, is because of Igor Shesterkin. Stop me if you've heard this before. And that's not to say he was perfect. I mean, I guess a couple of these shots were stoppable, but I don't say this lightly. I honestly think they hung him out to dry worse in this game than we've seen all season. I don't say that lightly at all because there have been some miserable defensive performances from this team, but just the lack of ability to defend against the rush, the lack of willingness to back check from some of these forwards is just incredible at this point. I mean, I say it's incredible. It's really not, because this is who the Rangers are. This is who they've shown themselves to be through 70 games, 72 games, whatever we're at this point, 74. How many games are left? What are we down to? Like 9, 8? Season can't end soon enough. But hey, you know what? Everything that I just mentioned, it's all okay, because Mika Zibanejad a couple of games ago said that he doesn't care if they play badly and win. He only cares if they play badly and lose. not to pick on Mika. I mean, he's certainly not the only culprit here, but that quote has kind of stuck with me. And that mindset is everything wrong with this Ranger team this season. So we're going to keep everything going in just a second. We're going to shift our attention to the Rangers' just god-awful, atrocious power play. We will talk about that and also some of these post-game quotes for some of these players in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites. We've all got eyes on underdogs, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. You can stay in the action. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting on which to bet. It's easy and fast. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, let's go ahead and keep ripping these guys to shreds here. I mean, I'm at the point where, I can't even get, overly emotional about this. I remember the game earlier this year where they played the Flyers and just flat, lifeless, uninspired, basically pathetic hockey. At this point, none of this surprised me. And at this point, nothing that this Ranger do in a negative way should surprise anybody. I mean, in a way it is, but in a way it's completely not, because they've shown us over and over and over again that they are plenty capable of finding a way to lose this game, that game, in ways that you couldn't have even imagined as recently as 1 year ago. But let's shift our attention to this absolutely horrendous Ranger power play unit, which now not only is not scoring goals, but is conceding all kinds of shorthanded chances and shorthanded goals and a game-tying goal late in the third period that forced this game into overtime. And I know the Ranger power play had technically run out during that, goal that the Ducks scored with 1:45 left or whatever it was. But the bottom line, they were largely responsible for this. Let's do some quick recapping here. As far as the Ranger man advantage is concerned, 1 for 7 in this game. Like I said, they basically gave up 2 shorthanded goals. One was official, one was non-official, and we'll break those down in greater detail in just a second. But they are now, after this game, 2 for their last 35 on the power play. This is a unit that was absolutely elite last year, and I think now we see just how important that dangerous power play was to this Ranger team. I mean, to me, the power play falling off is a big part of why the Rangers are not as successful this year as last year. But I think the bigger reason is just the overall mindset of this team. It's just a weak-minded team this year after being so tough and so resilient last season. And again, the power play does have something to do with that. To me, it's not as big of a reason as the mindset. But the power play falling off is obviously a big reason. So to continue to break this down, like I just said, 2 for their last 35. So basically, the Rangers have scored 2 goals in their last 70 minutes of man advantage time. Now, I realize not every single power play is going to go the full 2 minutes for various circumstances. There could be, penalties that overlap and you end up with a power play that lasts for 13 seconds. But for the most part, most of those power plays are the full 2 minutes. And in some cases, maybe even more. There could have been some double minors in there. I'm not going to go back and tally up every single second of all those power plays, but you get the idea here. It's basically somewhere in the ballpark of an hour, at least an hour of power play time. You produce 2 goals. It's absolutely atrocious. Putting Chris Kreider on that top unit, who was given 0 effort this entire season, is an absolute embarrassment. It's time to put somebody else there. I would think maybe JT Miller. Just an idea. If not him, then pick a name out of a hat. I don't even care anymore, but it can't be Kreider at this point. But anyway, like I said, not only are they atrocious on their own power plays, but they're giving up shorthanded chances. They give up a shorthanded goal in this game. In the first period, this tied the game at 1-1 for the Ducks. I didn't realize until I watched the replay of this what an atrocious play Alexis Lafreniere made on this. I shouldn't be surprised by this. Like I said, nothing about this team should surprise you guys at this point. But we've got Lafreniere passing down low to Cooley. Cooley tries to squeeze a pass into the slot to Brodzinski. Brodzinski winds back for the shot. His shot attempt gets deflected. It kind of squirts away. It's in the right face-off circle. And it's about halfway between a player on the Ducks, I think it was McTavish, and Alexis Lafreniere. And McTavish, or whoever the Duck was, picks it up, Lafreniere is there. He's close, and he just kind of takes a wave at him as he's going by. Doesn't do anything to fight for the puck. Doesn't take the body as a way to kind of slow him down a little bit, which he very easily could have. And just like that, the Ducks are off to the races. You've got a pass up the ice to Alex Killorn. Killorn absolutely burns Keandre Miller. His initial shot is stopped by Igor, but Killorn finds his own rebound, puts it into the net, and just like that, it's a shorthanded goal, and the Ducks have tied the game at 1-1. And at that point, the Ranger power play goal came later in the game. So at that point, in that one power play, the Rangers had given up as many shorthanded goals in that one power play as they had scored power play goals in their last 29 attempts. Think about that stat for a second. That's just absolutely wild. Then we have a 5-on-3 later in the game, in the third period. Rangers are up by 2 goals when this happens. And it wasn't one of those 5-on-3s that last for like 10 seconds. We're not talking about that. Oh, no. We're talking about a power play that lasts for 1 minute and 37 seconds. You have that much time to, go, I don't even know what the analogy would be. The dagger. I think that's what I'm looking for. To get the dagger on this team. And you're not able to do it because you insist on attempting to pass the puck into the net. The Rangers had, again, 1 minute 37 of 5-on-3 time. Pass, no shooting. And when they did shoot, it would go wide of the net. They went 1 minute and 37 seconds of 5-on-3 power play time without getting a single shot on goal in a situation in this game where you should be looking to be aggressive. This is it, man. You can this game is basically over. I mean, I should probably watch what I say there because this is the Rangers we're talking about. And as we know, they are never in control of a game. Even when it might look that way on the scoreboard, they never have complete control. And who knows? Maybe they would have collapsed and given away a 3-goal lead if they had the opportunity to do that. But, I mean, I don't know. If you score on a 5-on-3 advantage and there's like 8 minutes to go in the game and it puts you up by 3 goals, you should pretty much be home free. Again, we'll never know if the Rangers would have brought it home. But, yeah, bottom line, I mean, they didn't take any shots. And it's in a situation in the game where the only thing to do is to be aggressive, look for that knockout blow, have that killer instinct. The Rangers have none of that, and they wasted it. Now you're still up by 2 goals. You should be home free. I mean, you still have to work for it. Don't tell that to these Ranger players. They're not going to like the sound of that. But then you end up with the Rangers getting another power play with 3:53 to go. At this point, the lead is down to 4-3. So Rangers are on the power play, less than 4 minutes to go, and they have a 1-goal lead. As soon as this happened, as soon as this penalty was called against the Ducks, I should have been excited. I should have been happy about this. Again, not to compare everything to last year, but last year I would have been feeling good about this situation. Not this year, because the Ranger power play is so bad that you just have next to no belief that they're going to score a goal here. I mean, they scored a power play goal earlier in the game, yes, but to me, that almost suggests that, like, there's no way they're going to get 2, right? I mean, somebody else must have felt that way watching this. But beyond that, they're also giving up more chances. I talked about this earlier. They're giving up more chances when they're on the power play than they're creating chances for themselves. So I just don't like this. As soon as they're on the power play, everything goes to bleep, basically. That's what we're talking about here. And so the other thing is that when there's a situation like this is whether it's the Rangers or anybody else, when a team that has a 1-goal lead late in a game and gets on the power play, when that happens, it's kind of a strange situation because yeah, you want to be aggressive and you want to look to score, but the team that is on the power play in this situation and has the 1-goal lead, I feel like they sort of played a little bit conservative because you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to give up a scoring chance, and maybe you just possess the puck rather than really looking to score. And on the flip side of that, the team that's shorthanded, it kind of puts them on the attack a little bit. Like, yeah, we're shorthanded, but man, we got to go. We got to take our shot because it's getting late in this game and we're down by a goal. So it's kind of an awkward situation in the first place. And I feel like teams, whether it's the Rangers or anybody else, when they get a power play in this situation in a game, they don't really know how to play it because it doesn't come up that often. But it came up here. And again, for all those reasons, I didn't have a good feeling about this Ranger power play. Naturally, they do not score because why would they? And then you get a situation where all 3 Ranger forwards are like deep in the offensive zone, and there's a 4-on-2 rush the other way, just completely out of nowhere as the power play ends. Basically what happened was you've got Lafreniere. He's got the puck up the left side, closing seconds of the power play. He plays it around behind the net, around the boards. JT Miller pinches, but the Ducks basically poke the puck right by him. They pick it up, and they're off to the races. It's a 4-on-2, couple of passes, and the puck is in the net. Now, Laviolette he's going to have to bear his responsibility for everything that's gone wrong this season, and I think very soon he very likely will. But at least he uses head a little bit here. At the end of this power play, the Rangers actually had 2 defensemen on the ice, which I like because, again, it's a situation where you got to think defense first, especially as the power play is winding down. So you had Miller and Borgen out there with about 30 seconds to go in the power play or whatever it was. But all 3 Ranger forwards, Cooley, JT Miller, and Alexis Lafreniere, were caught in deep. When the Ducks picked up this puck, Lafreniere is just standing behind the Ducks net, not doing anything. And you'll be shocked to learn that he didn't really make any effect on the play. Once the Ducks went the other way, I mean, he started moving back toward the defensive zone, but wasn't able to do anything to disrupt the play, wasn't exactly busting on the back check in a huge spot in the game. It just sums up the Rangers. You get a 4-on-2 when you're in the closing seconds of a power play, and in a situation where you have a 1-goal lead and it's late in the third period. It's just unacceptable, but it's what the Rangers do. It's who they are. They have shown us this time and time again. They will find ways to lose. And as far as the power play itself, how to fix this, I mean, I have no idea at this point. I don't think Chris Kreider should be there. We can start with that. Take him off of the power play, put JT Miller there, and go from there. Maybe put Will Cooley out there instead of Mika Zibanejad. I mean, I don't know, man. At this point, you're just kind of grasping at straws. They're a mess. The power play is an absolute mess. And it's one of many, many problems with the Rangers this season and throughout this recent stretch where I believe they've now lost 9 out of their last 12 games, whatever it is. So in just a second, going to shift our attention to some of the post-game comments from both Peter Laviolette and some of the Ranger players and some of the nothing burger quotes that these guys all gave. We'll talk about that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Extra daylight means extra activities. With longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost, and you've got on-the-go convenience. Whether you're at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is an easy grab and keeps you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of these Ranger quotes after the game. I mean, you guys, the everydayers, you guys hear from me quite a bit on here. So I figure let's turn it over to the Ranger coaches, the Ranger players, and find out what they had to say about this latest disaster piece that they produced in Anaheim just last night. So for starters, let me kind of set the stage here. When this game ended, I mean, I'm kind of in shock, but again, not really, because this team, none of this should be surprising to any of us. The lows keep getting lower. That is the theme of the 2024-2025 New York Rangers. But when the game ended and the shock wore off a little bit, and what did I just watch? I basically tweeted out something along the lines of, I don't want to hear any of these players talking about how, well, just take the point and move on, because that would have made me want to just smash something. And I can't be alone there. We heard Mika Zibanejad say something along those lines after the Rangers-Senators game, which I believe happened not too long after the Four Nations break. That might have been like the 4th or 5th game coming out of the break there. But basically, that game unfolded the same way that this one did. The Rangers had a 2-goal lead in the third period against the Senators. Senators scored twice to send it into overtime. And what you know it, the Rangers choke in overtime again, and the Senators won that game. And you've got Mika after the game. It wasn't the only thing that he said. He wasn't trying to act like it was a great performance or anything. But he talks about how the Rangers got a point out of it. Yeah, Mika, it was a 3-point swing. The Senators were about to get 0 points. They got 2 points. You guys were about to get 2 points. You got 1 point. It's a 3-point swing. And look at where those two teams have gone since then. The Senators are running away with that top wildcard spot. They just keep winning. And you've got these other 5 or 6 teams that just don't want to get in because none of them win ever. Somebody is going to make the playoffs by default in the Eastern Conference. That's basically the long and short of it. So you had Mika talk about that. But again, getting back to this quote that I sent out, or this tweet that I sent out last night, not more than 2 minutes did I push send, did we get essentially this exact quote from Adam Fox. Now, again, to be completely fair to Adam Fox, he wasn't acting like this was a great performance, or they should be proud of it. He did, in fact, call it an unacceptable third period. And hey, at least one of these Rangers is right about something, right? But he did go on to mention the silver lining that they got a point out of it. And yes, in a literal sense, sure. But that can't be the mindset of these players. None of these players should look at 1 point in a game like that, where you led the entire way. You were in complete control despite hanging your goalie out to dry. You had a two, we'll go through the list again. You had a 2-goal lead twice in the third period. The Rangers, for the vast majority of the third period, were up by 2 goals. And on top of that, the Ducks took 5 penalties. How does a team come back from 2 goals down in the third period when they take 5 penalties? You think the Rangers could pull that off? I'm not so sure anybody could pull that off unless they're playing the Rangers. Then maybe. We saw the Ducks do it last night against the Rangers, obviously. But this is the mindset of this team. They look and I'm all for positivity. I really am. This used to be like the most positive New York Ranger podcast you could ever find. And I think it still might be, because if I'm going off like this, I can't even imagine what some other people are saying. But I've always been like glass half full. I've always been positive. They lost this one, but here's some good things about it, and they'll win the next one and all this stuff. You can't sugarcoat anything that's gone on this season anymore. You just can't. And for the players to look at it as a positive that you got 1 point, you should be furious about this. Forget about the 1 point. You lost. You lost a game where you had every opportunity to put it to bed and clinch the win and get an important 2 points and move on. And you blew it. You choked, you lost, and again, you hung your goalie out to dry. You should not be happy about this just because you got a point. JT Miller was asked about the power play basically destroying the Rangers' momentum. That's been kind of a theme lately. I'm not the only one to make this joke, but I've been saying just decline the penalty. If there's a penalty on the other team, just decline it. Say, nope, that's okay. Let it go. We'll just continue to play 5-on-5. Obviously, you can't actually do that. One of these days, though, I want to see if an opponent of the Rangers takes a penalty, obviously that player has to go to the penalty box. You can't obviously decline the penalty. Go 4-on-4. Forget about the power play. Just put 4 random players on the ice and just see how it goes. It cannot possibly go as bad as this Ranger power play has gone. And I know that the feeling there as well, you still have to take the power play. Sooner or later, somebody's going to score. Sooner or later, this thing is going to turn around. I'm not convinced this power play is going to be any better down the stretch than what we've seen this entire season. And I might get a goal every once in a while, but by and large, it's been terrible and will very likely continue to be terrible and continue to basically derail the Rangers. There's times where they're actually playing decent hockey and they get a power play and it all goes south. And JT Miller was asked about all this to bring everything full circle here. And he said, not going to speak on behalf of the other unit, but our unit basically gave them the game today. They scored basically twice against us. That stinks. That's on us. Guys, did I actually hear some accountability? It's weird, right? Coming from a New York Ranger, somebody being accountable, somebody saying, you know what, that's on me, that's on us, that's our fault, that's not good enough. It's basically what JT Miller said. A little bit of a paraphrase there by me, but that's basically the message that was delivered. And this is where we are right now as fans of this team. Like, I heard that and I was like, oh, that's good that he said that. I was happy about that. The bar is so low, and this season has been such a train wreck, and there have been so many just god-awful, inexcusable performances that this is where we're at. This is what it takes. This is all it takes to make some of us feel good. A player actually took some responsibility. A player actually took some accountability. There's some other veterans in that locker room that are not going to do it. But JT Miller at least did that. But he's right. We broke down the power plays. His second unit there basically gave them 2 goals, and he was right in the middle of at least one of them. So it's not good. We had Mika talk after the game, and he's doing his usual routine of just kind of sitting down and slumping and kind of mumbling through it, and you just don't even want to hear it anymore. That's where we're at. And then Peter Laviolette, he's asked about, basically the entire game, and he says this: listen, we're in charge of a game going into the third period twice. We don't execute. We don't get it done. So that's disappointing. Very disappointing as it gets. The thing is, Peter Laviolette at this point has got nothing. He knows he's a dead man walking. He knows there's basically nothing he can do to salvage his job as head coach of this Ranger team. It's not all his fault, but it's certainly partially his fault. The fact that this Ranger team continues in a third period where they led by 2 goals for the majority of it, and they continue to bleed all these grade A scoring chances. They continue to bleed all these odd man rushes. They continue to allow the Ducks just to go right to the front of their net. It's inexcusable, and that has to fall on coaching. It has to fall on Laviolette. I know some people have targeted Phil Housley. I think the entire coaching staff deserves some blame for all of that. It's been bad. But the only thing I'll say in Laviolette's slight defense, this is not the first coach that this group of players has quit on. We've seen this song and dance before, and at a certain point, when do we blame the players? And I'm not saying that nobody's doing that, because clearly a lot of you are. A lot of people, that cover this team are aware of that. Fans of this team are aware of that. But at a certain point, who's going to want to coach this team? It's the Rangers, so there will be somebody, and somebody, especially if it's, somebody that maybe right now is coaching in the AHL or college or whatever it might be. If somebody has their chance to be a first-time NHL head coach and have it be the Rangers, have it be any team, really, they're going to take that opportunity. But, my God, this has gone from being like a team that I think as recently as 2 seasons ago when Laviolette was hired was a very attractive landing spot for an NHL head coach. Now, I'm not so sure it is. There's some young talent in place, and that's great. But these veterans, man, I just don't even know how you deal with it. How do you reach these guys? What kind of a coach do they want to play for? I'm wondering also, I'll throw this out there too at the very end here, and then we can call it. If the Rangers lose to the Sharks tonight, will that finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Will that finally result in Peter Laviolette being fired? If that was to happen, I would think they would probably either go with Pekka or Muse for the rest of the way, and maybe that's worth a shot at this point just to see if they can spark anything. But knowing the Rangers, this is probably what would happen. They would fire Laviolette, and let's just say Pekka takes over. Watch them go like 6-3 down the stretch here and like barely eke into the playoffs, but then get slaughtered in the first round. They would then think that's good enough to go with Michael Pekka for the coach for the next season, and that's not much of a sample size. Or they do the exact opposite. Like, watch Michael Pekka goes on to coach somewhere else and have a great NHL head coaching tenure, but the Rangers move on from him. I feel like whatever decision the Rangers make will probably end up being the wrong one in a situation like that. Maybe that's part of the reason why they stick with Laviolette. They know he's going to get fired, and so let's just keep him for the rest of the season. Let's just see what happens, and then we'll start clean next season. And we don't even want to put ourselves in that position, whether we're deciding to keep an interim coach around or go in a different direction, because that would be a big decision for the Rangers if that scenario that I just laid out was what ultimately unfolded the last handful of games here. So, yeah, figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, that is @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.